I used to think retirement meant slowing down. I imagined quieter mornings, longer naps, and maybe catching up on all the things I never had time for. But what I did not realize back then was that retirement is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you finally get to ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to live now? No deadlines, no schedules someone else wrote for you. Just you, your time, and your choices. Over the past few years, I have learned that these years, these so-called golden years, can be the most meaningful, peaceful, and even exciting if you are intentional about how you live them. Today, I want to share with you 10 daily habits that have helped me turn retirement into a time of real purpose, joy, and connection. These are not theories or borrowed advice. They come from my own experience, from mornings that started heavy to afternoons that ended with a full heart. So stay with me. Because habit number 10, it is the one thing that gently reminds me every single day that I am still alive, still growing, and still capable of choosing joy. 1. Make your bed with intention. When I first retired, I thought freedom meant no alarms, no routines, and no more of the little things I used to do out of obligation. So, I stopped making my bed. I figured, what was the point? It is just me now. No boss to impress, no guests to entertain, no one checking whether the covers are tucked in. But after a while, I noticed something. The days I left the bed unmade felt a little foggier, a little messier. It was like my mind mirrored my surroundings. I would drift through the morning, unsure of what I wanted to do, and by noon, I had already lost track of time. That is when I decided to bring back one small habit from my working years, making the bed. But this time, I did not do it out of routine or discipline. I did it with intention. I made it slowly, mindfully. I smoothed the sheets, fluffed the pillows, pulled the comforter up with care, not because I had to, but because I could. And that small act changed everything. It gave my day a beginning. It told my brain, we are up, we are moving, we are choosing to participate in today. What surprised me most was how emotional that simple task became. It reminded me that I am still in charge of my space, my mindset, and my rhythm. And on the hard days, yes, those days still come, it gave me a sense of control when everything else felt uncertain. I know it might sound silly, especially when you have lived a long life filled with responsibilities and big moments, but sometimes it is the little rituals that keep us grounded. I am not saying making your bed will solve all your problems, but I can tell you this. On the days I start with intention, I feel more present. I move through the day with a sense of order. And at night, when I return to that neatly made bed, it feels like a small gift I gave myself in the morning, a way of saying, you mattered today. That is what this habit is about. Not perfection, not productivity, just starting the day with care for yourself. Because no matter your age, you are worth that small act of dignity and presence. 2. Say one kind thing to yourself in the mirror. This one took me a while to get used to. Looking in the mirror used to be something I avoided. Not because of vanity, but because over time I started seeing only what I had lost. A younger face, a stronger frame, a life that once felt full of movement and noise. And in that reflection, I often saw regret, things I wished I had done better, moments I could not get back. But one morning, without thinking too much about it, I looked in the mirror and quietly said, you are doing okay. I did not plan it. It just slipped out. And strangely enough, it stuck with me all day. So the next day I tried it again. This time I said, I am proud of you. It felt strange at first, even silly. But as I kept doing it, day after day, I noticed something shifting. Not in the mirror, in me. You see, we spend most of our lives taking care of others. As parents, partners, workers, neighbors, we give, we serve, we worry about everyone else. But rarely do we stop and give ourselves a kind word. And by the time retirement comes, some of us have internalized years of self-doubt or guilt or shame. Saying something kind to yourself in the mirror is not just about positivity. It is about healing. It is about learning to speak to yourself with the same tenderness you might offer your grandchild or your best friend. You do not have to say much, just one sentence. I forgive you. You are enough. You still matter. It might feel awkward at first. You might even laugh. That is okay. But keep doing it. Keep showing up for yourself in that mirror, because over time, those words will start to sink in. They will replace the harsh inner voice that says, you are too old, too late, too broken. And they will remind you that you are human, that you are allowed to show yourself the same compassion you have spent a lifetime giving to others. Now, every morning, after I make my bed, I stand in front of the mirror and say something kind. Some days it is emotional. Other days it is quiet, but always it is true. This habit has helped me reconnect with myself, not who I was, but who I still am. And I think that is one of the most powerful things we can do in our later years, to speak to ourselves with kindness and to mean it. Purposeful planning. When I first stopped working, I thought I would love the freedom of waking up with no plans, no meetings, no deadlines, no one needing me to be somewhere at a specific time, and for a while it was nice. But eventually, that freedom turned into a kind of drifting. I would wake up late, sip coffee for hours, and before I knew it, the whole day had slipped by without much meaning. It is easy to lose your sense of direction when you no longer have a job or young children anchoring your routine. And that is when I realized something important. Just because I was no longer on someone else's schedule did not mean I should live without one of my own. So I started writing down 3 things I wanted to do each day. Not a long to-do list, just 3. Sometimes they were practical, like doing laundry or going to the grocery store. Other times they were simple joys. Read a chapter of a new book, call my daughter, or take a walk before sunset. It was not about being productive. It was about being purposeful. Having 3 small intentions gave shape to my day. It gave me a reason to get up and move. And more than that, it gave me a sense of progress. A sense that I was still growing, still choosing, still moving forward. On days when I felt low or restless, those little goals helped me stay grounded. They reminded me that even now, in this quieter season of life, my time still matters. My choices still shape my experience. I keep a small notebook by the coffee maker. Each morning, I write down my 3 things. Some days I do them all. Some days I do just one, but even that one feels like a quiet win. If you are retired and feeling like the days blur together, I encourage you to try this. It is not about busyness. It is about clarity. It is about honoring each day with purpose, no matter how small. Because when you look back on your week, your month, your year, you will not remember how long you sat on the couch. You will remember the things you chose to do. The things that made you feel alive. 4. Reconnect with a memory. This habit came to me one morning while I was cleaning out a drawer in the hallway. I found an old photograph curled at the edges, a little faded, but full of life. It was me, my kids, and a dog we used to have, years ago out by the lake. I just stood there holding that photo, and for a few moments, I was back in that moment. I could feel the warmth of the sun, hear the laughter, smell the grass, and in that stillness, something opened up inside me. A kind of peace, a quiet kind of joy. That was the day I started a new habit, reconnecting with one memory every day. Now, let me be clear. I do not mean sitting around wishing for the past or dwelling on what is gone. I mean intentionally taking a few minutes each day to remember something beautiful, something meaningful, something that shaped who I am. Sometimes it is as simple as holding a keepsake, like the recipe card my mother wrote in her perfect cursive, stained with time and love. Other days, I flip through an old journal or a letter I saved from one of the kids. Sometimes it is just closing my eyes and letting a memory come. The sound of my brother's laughter when we were young. The feel of the old rocking chair on the porch where I used to read on summer evenings. This habit does more than just bring back the past. It roots me in who I am. It reminds me that I have lived deeply and fully, that my life is a collection of stories and feelings that still matter, and that even though time keeps moving forward, the love, the joy, and even the pain, they are all part of the person I am today. Some memories bring a smile, others bring tears. But every one of them is a thread in the fabric of my life. I take those moments in with gratitude, not sadness. They are not just reminders of what was, they are reminders of how much richness has passed through my life and how much meaning still surrounds me now. If you try this, you do not need to dig through boxes or organize old albums. Just start with one memory a day. Let it rise up naturally. Let it visit you like an old friend, and welcome it. Because in remembering, we reconnect, not only with our past, but with ourselves. Lifelong learning. I will admit, there was a time in my life when I believed learning was for the young. Schools, textbooks, degrees, that all belonged to an earlier chapter. I spent decades working hard, raising a family, managing responsibilities. And when I retired, I thought learning days were behind me. But there was something missing. My mind felt restless even when my schedule was quiet. I realized I was no longer challenging myself, no longer feeding my curiosity. So I made a change. I picked something new to learn. For me, it started with Spanish, not because I had to, but because I had always wanted to. Just 10 minutes a day. A few words, a few phrases, and slowly, something surprising happened. My mind lit up again. You do not have to pick a language. You might learn how to cook a new dish, use a new piece of technology, understand the night sky, or dive into a piece of history you never studied. It could be reading biographies, listening to podcasts, or even taking a free online course. What matters is not the subject. What matters is that you are engaging your brain with curiosity. That you are telling yourself, I still want to grow. You see, the world does not stop turning when we retire, and neither should we. When we stop learning, we shrink. When we challenge ourselves, we expand, mentally, emotionally, and even socially. I have found that learning something new gives me a reason to talk to others, to ask questions, to stay connected to the world around me. Some days I do not retain much. Some lessons are harder than others. But every time I try, I feel a quiet pride. Not because I am getting it perfect, but because I am showing up. I am choosing to keep growing, even now, especially now. Lifelong learning is not about achievement. It is about aliveness. It is a reminder that you are still capable, still curious, and still evolving. If there is something you have always wanted to learn, I hope you give yourself permission to begin. Not for anyone else's sake, but for your own. Because your mind deserves to be inspired just as much now as it ever has. 6. Reach out to one person a day. Loneliness in retirement is real, and it is quiet. It does not always show up as sadness. Sometimes it is just a feeling that the days are a little too quiet, the phone a little too still. In my early retirement, I went days without a real conversation, not because people did not care, but because life moves fast, for them and for me. So I decided to change that. I started reaching out to one person each day, just one. It might be a phone call, a text, an email, or even a handwritten note. Some days, I call my daughter just to say good morning. Other days, I message an old friend or leave a voicemail for someone I have not spoken to in a while. At first, I wondered if people would think it was strange. But you know what? They responded. Sometimes right away, sometimes not for a few days. But almost every time, there was warmth on the other side. A laugh, a memory, a short chat that made the day feel full. I was not waiting for someone to think of me. I was taking the initiative to say, "Hey, I thought of you today." And that made all the difference. Human connection does not always have to be deep or long to be meaningful. Sometimes just hearing someone's voice or reminding someone that they matter is enough. And it goes both ways. I feel lighter on the days I reach out. I feel remembered even when no one else is around. I have even reconnected with people I thought were lost to time. Former neighbors, old coworkers, distant cousins. Retirement gave me the time and space to rediscover my relationships, and this habit has kept those connections alive. If you ever feel invisible in this stage of life, I encourage you to try this. Choose one person a day. It does not have to be long or profound. It just has to be real. Let someone know they are on your mind. Because when you open that door, even just a little, you give love a chance to walk back in. 7. Digital detox time. It took me a while to admit this, but even in retirement, I found myself glued to screens. I had all this time, but somehow I was spending hours scrolling through news, checking email, or flipping through channels without really watching anything. I would pick up my phone just to check the weather and end up reading the headlines for 30 minutes, and afterward, I would feel drained, not better. So, one day I decided to try something new. I gave myself 1 hour a day with no screens, no phone, no television, no computer, nothing that glowed or buzzed or pulled me into someone else's story. Just quiet time for me. At first, it was uncomfortable. I was so used to filling silence with noise. But over time, that hour became the most peaceful part of my day. I used it to sit on the porch and listen to the wind, or to write in a notebook with no agenda. Sometimes, I just sipped my tea and watched the birds in the yard. The world slowed down and I could hear myself again. My thoughts were clearer. My heart was lighter. And my anxiety, which I did not even realize I had picked up from all that constant information, began to ease. We often think of digital detox as something for younger people or those addicted to social media. But the truth is, we all need space from the noise, especially in this stage of life when we are trying to rediscover what it means to simply be, to rest without distraction, to think without interruption. I still use my phone, of course. I still enjoy a good show or a video call with family. But that 1 hour away each day, it is mine. It is sacred. It is where I remember what the world sounds like without someone else's opinion in my ear. It is where I feel present. If you are willing, try it. Pick 1 hour a day and turn everything off. Let your eyes rest. Let your thoughts wander. Let silence be your companion instead of something to fear. Because in that quiet space, you just might hear the most important voice of all, your own. Healthy eating routine. In my younger years, food was about convenience. I ate fast, I ate what was in front of me, and I rarely thought about what my body actually needed. During my working years, it was coffee for breakfast, something fried for lunch, and whatever I could microwave for dinner. But retirement brought me face to face with my body in a new way. I started noticing how certain foods made me feel tired, heavy, or restless. I had more time to notice the difference between feeling full and feeling nourished, so I decided to approach food with care, not control. Not dieting, not restrictions, just attention. Intention. Each morning, I start with something light and warm, sometimes just a glass of water with lemon or a small bowl of oatmeal. I listen to how my body feels before eating. I ask myself if I am truly hungry or just filling time. Lunchtime is usually the biggest meal of the day for me now. I focus on fresh ingredients, colorful vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins. Nothing fancy, just real food, prepared with love and patience. Dinner is small and early. I eat enough to be satisfied, but not so much that I feel weighed down before sleep. But more than the food itself, what changed for me was the attitude. Eating is no longer a rushed task. It is a ritual. It is time I give myself to nourish, to slow down, to be present. I light a candle at the table. I sit down, even if it is just me. I chew slowly. I taste. I give thanks. Sometimes I say it out loud. Thank you for this meal and for this day. That small practice brings peace into something that once felt automatic. And I will say this, since I started eating this way, I feel better. My energy is steadier. My digestion has improved. My mind is clearer. I do not feel young again, but I do feel well. And that is more than enough. So, if you are in a place where food feels like a burden or just another thing to get through, I invite you to change the pace. Let food become a gift again. Not something to fear or fight, but something to savor. Your body is still listening, and it deserves your kindness. Number 9, contribution or volunteering. One of the hardest shifts in retirement, at least for me, was going from being needed every day to feeling like the world no longer had a place for me. I did not expect that. I thought I would enjoy the rest, and I did, for a while. But after the first year, I started to feel like I was fading into the background. The phone rang less. The mailbox was mostly bills or ads. I began to wonder, where do I fit in now? That question sat with me until one afternoon, while walking through the local library, I saw a sign asking for volunteers. Just 2 hours a week to help shelf books, assist with kids' story time, or offer support for community events. I signed up on the spot. That simple act changed everything. Suddenly, I had somewhere to be. People were glad to see me. I was part of something again. But more than that, I felt useful. And that feeling is more powerful than we often realize. Being useful does not mean being busy. It means your presence matters. Your time means something to someone else. Whether it is reading to children, organizing meals at a food pantry, helping at a place of worship, or even just checking in on neighbors, giving your time and attention reminds you that you still have something to offer. And you do. Some people hesitate because they think volunteering has to be big or formal. It does not. Contribution can be small and quiet. Writing birthday cards for veterans, mowing a neighbor's lawn, making a pie for someone going through a hard time. These gestures ripple out farther than we ever see. And strangely enough, the more you give, the more full your own life becomes. Purpose does not retire, and neither does love. So, if you have been feeling invisible, try reaching outward. Try giving something of yourself. You do not have to fix the world. Just show up in one small way for someone else. That is how we stay connected. That is how we stay alive inside. And I promise you, there is still a space in this world that only you can fill. 10. Joy ritual. One thing each day just for you. This last habit is, without a doubt, the one closest to my heart. I call it my joy ritual. It is the one thing I do each day just for me. Not because I have to, not because it is good for me, not because it serves a purpose, but because it brings me a quiet sense of happiness. In my earlier life, joy was always squeezed in between responsibilities, maybe on a weekend, maybe during vacation, but never as part of the ordinary rhythm of a day. I thought joy had to be earned or scheduled or saved for special occasions. Retirement taught me otherwise. Now, each morning, I ask myself a simple question. What would bring me joy today? And I listen. Some days, the answer is sitting on the porch with a warm cup of tea while the wind rustles the trees. Other days, it is playing an old jazz record I have not listened to in years. Sometimes, it is as small as taking 5 minutes to smell the roses in the garden. Not metaphorically, but literally. The point is not what I do, but that I make space for joy. Every single day. This habit reminds me that life is not just about staying healthy, staying busy, or staying connected. Though all of those are important, life is also about delight, about beauty, about noticing the little things that make this moment worthwhile. And if I am honest, building this habit took effort, because even after retirement, there was a voice in me that said, "You do not have time for that," or "That is selfish," or "There is laundry to do." But over time, I have learned to silence that voice. I have learned to protect my joy like something sacred, because it is. This daily ritual has saved me on hard days. When the news is heavy, when the aches in my body are louder than usual, when I feel distant from people I love, my joy ritual grounds me. It reminds me that no matter what the world is doing, I can still create a pocket of peace in my own life, and that is powerful. So if you do nothing else, I encourage you to try this. Make joy a daily practice, even 5 minutes, even one small thing. Not for productivity, not for self-improvement, just for the sake of feeling good, because you deserve that. Because joy is not just for the young, or the lucky, or the busy. It is for you. Today, right where you are, a life well chosen. If you are still here with me, thank you. That means something. It means you are still seeking, still growing, still listening for what your life can become, even now. I have lived long enough to know that these years are precious. Not always easy, not always predictable, but deeply, deeply meaningful, if you choose to live them that way. The 10 habits I have shared with you today are not magic. They will not fix everything. But they have given me a rhythm, a reason to rise each morning, a quiet structure that supports not just my body, but my soul. They help me feel present, they help me feel alive, and most of all, they help me remember that I am still the author of this chapter, however long it may last. So I ask you, which habit will you begin tomorrow? Just one. That is all it takes. You do not have to change everything overnight. Just start. Choose something that feels gentle, something that fits your pace, because this time of life is not about rushing. It is about savoring. It is about doing fewer things, but doing them with more heart. And as you build these daily moments of presence, connection, and joy, I hope you discover what I have, that retirement is not the end of your story. It is the part where you finally get to write the kind of life that feels fully your own. I am glad we are walking this path together. Take care of yourself. And do not forget, today is still yours.